Hi, I'm Jim Kellett with Landscaping in Douglas County. On today's show, we'll take you through the process of transforming a typical, which is to say plain old residential backyard, into a landscaping showpiece. We'll be covering those aspects of the job best left to professionals, as well as helpful tips and techniques for the do-it-yourselfer. We'll also be covering aesthetic design considerations, recreational uses, water conservation techniques, homeowner association and county code requirements. First, there are grade and drainage requirements that anyone in Douglas County must be aware of before starting a landscaping project.
Douglas County requires that all builders of single-family residential structures submit a drainage certificate post-construction. This drainage certificate is basically a survey done by either a professional land surveyor or a professional engineer, and it depicts the drainage patterns. This shows that adequate drainage has been established on this site. Once the county receives a drainage certificate from the builder, the homeowner is responsible to maintain the drainage patterns on their lot. The drainage swale on this property was more than likely right on the fence line. What happens is the fence company comes in and they dig their holes for the fence post, and all the spoils, instead of taking the spoils and depositing them somewhere, they just spread them out in the drainage swales, and that causes high points in your drainage swales, so now your swale does not flow. What's going to have to be done is you're going to have to make sure that you have 10% in the first, what is actually now about 5 feet, and 2% in the drainage swales, which means you're going to have to take some out of the drainage swale, bring it back up to the foundation, rake it so it's nice and level, 2% from the front to the back in order to get that water out from between these two homes. And what you're seeing here is the sediment starting to creep from the unlandscaped lot into the landscape lot. Doesn't sound like much right now, but after time and after a heavy rainstorm, when a lot of sediment is deposited onto that site, you'll definitely hear from the homeowners downstream, and that is a civil tort matter. Again, we have sediment transported off-site. This time, it's left the unlandscaped site and across the landscaping rocks onto the sidewalk, where it can be transported into the storm system and out into open space and wetlands. The best thing you can do is landscape as soon as you get your drainage certificate.
The purpose of these county grade and drainage requirements is to keep water flowing away from your home. Failure to follow them can result in moisture buildup next to your foundation, which in turn can lead to foundation damage due to the expansive soil we have in Colorado, a leaky basement, or mold problems. All of these regulations must be certified as having been met by the builder when you purchase a new home in Douglas County. The drainage patterns on any lot, however, can change with time due to natural erosion or the actions of homeowners themselves. With this in mind, you should ensure that proper drainage patterns are still intact before starting any landscaping project, and will still be intact after the landscaping is finished. This can best be done by resurveying your lot.
We're here today at the request of the homeowner who's getting ready to make some major changes to their backyard. Nearly all homes in Douglas County, when they're purchased new, have a warranty against structural defects, against foundation problems that can be voided if the homeowner is negligent or careless and causes water to gather around their foundation or flow toward their home. It's a very good idea to have a surveyor come out and check your yard before you begin any major grading work. The cost is reasonable, and it's well worth it against the possibility of voiding your warranty. Well, we've completed the survey here of this homeowner's property. Most of it drains fine. I do not believe there's any problems with grading around this lot. It's pretty much ready for landscaping. The one area we do note, and it's a minor problem, is here in the backyard from the dirt at the edge of the house to a point 10 feet out, which is about here. We desire to have exactly 1 foot of fall. This is the part of the slope that protects the house. In rains or irrigation, the water will run well away from the foundation. Stay within code by keeping 1 foot of fall away from your house in the first 10 feet. After that, further away from the house, your yard can be as flat as 2%, which is 2 feet in 100 feet, which is a pretty flat yard. We've set a wooden hub in the ground at this point, marked with a bright pink plastic thing to show the homeowner where we'd like the grade cut to. In addition then, further down, we have another wood hub in the ground. This one is exactly at the dirt grade. In other words, we would like repairs to be made to the swale from this hub to that one. And a surveyor is the best at helping with the landscaping and with the construction to set grades so that no codes are violated.
One more thing you must do before you start any digging on your property is to locate any underground utility pipes or cables. As a homeowner, you would be responsible for any damage done to them as a result of your work. This could run into some high cost for you, not to mention the dangers inherent in breaching a gas pipe or electric line. Therefore, it's the law to call before you dig. You must call the Utility Notification Center of Colorado at least 3 days before you excavate. Just give them the address where you plan to landscape, and they will send a locator out to mark the positions of underground lines or pipes. Remember, call before you dig. The number is 1-800-922-1987, and the website is www.uncc.org. Once you have had the utility location done, you can proceed with the landscaping according to your plan. This can be an idea in your head, a quick sketch you have drawn up yourself, or a detailed blueprint that has been drawn up in consultation with a professional landscaper.
We have clients that come in and they have some ideas they would like to see with their landscape. Maybe they have something sketched on a piece of paper, and we'll sit down and go over those ideas with them and find out what their goals and objectives are, try and establish a budget for what they'd like to spend, and approach each area of the landscape as an individual room you would possibly approach in your house when you're designing it. Really, we see our objective is to assist the homeowner in achieving what they'd like to see with their backyard.
Our landscaping project here will include a deck, a hot tub pad, a retaining wall, a water feature, a putting green, an underground sprinkler system, some mulch beds, lots of plant life, and a fence around the entire property. So with our plan all nailed down, it's time to turn it into reality. The first thing we'll do is pour the concrete where the putting green is going to go.
At this project here, what we did is we met with the homeowner and we figured out in the backyard where would be a good spot to put the putting green. And what we did is we located a spot that the homeowner had in mind, and we worked out a nice design that fit in with the backyard, and it was a nice economical putting green that fit in well with the landscaping, and it was in an area that would otherwise be unused.
We come in, grade the area, set the forms up, and then obviously put in 3/8" rebar. Concrete is not completely flat. It does have slope built into it. I think it's got like a 2.5 to 3 inch slope, and that's more or less how the homeowner wants the ball to roll and stuff like that.
Our putting green foundation will take about 30 days to cure properly. In the meantime, we'll put in the retaining wall that's going to level out the side yard of our property.
One of the things we needed to consider during this design and course of landscape construction was a slope on the side of the house. So what we did is we came in and we created 2 levels. We excavated out with a skid steer and created a rock wall that varies from 1 foot to 2 foot tall, very aesthetic, has some winter appeal. At the same time that we've done this, we've leveled the lawn area.
It is important to remember that as we flatten out the side yard, we are still retaining a minimum 10% of fall within the first 10 feet from the house.
In a dry stack retaining wall, there needs to be what's called a batter to the wall, where the wall angles back. Because anytime you do a retaining wall, eventually the soil behind it settles and it puts weight on the back of that wall and forces it forward. If you don't establish that angle or that batter back and your wall starts straight, ultimately it's going to tumble forward.
Now, the retaining wall on our project is less than 4 feet high, so in our case we don't require a building permit. Although, if you want to build a retaining wall over 4 feet high, measured from the bottom of the footing to the top of the wall, you will have to get a permit before you build. Also, if your retaining wall involves what we call a surcharge, you must have an engineer's design and a permit before you build. A surcharge is when the ground being retained by the wall slopes upward above the top of the wall. If the ground being retained by the wall is level or slopes downward from the top of the wall, you do not have a surcharge. The next step in our landscaping project will be a water feature. In our plan, this pond and stream fountain will be integrated into the edge of the deck for aesthetic appeal.
In pond depth, in order for fish to survive, some believe 2 foot is enough, others believe 3 foot. I think if somebody is down there and they're excavating this hole and preparing their water feature, I think it would behoove them to go to a 3 foot depth. There's going to be the addition of rocks or cobbles added into there and several inches of pea gravel. So the bottom of the pond could quickly become only 2.5 foot.
As we're laying a water feature out, we want to create particular areas where the water will fall off of and drop down into an area to add a little more visual interest. One of the things that's unique about water features are that they use less water per square foot of area than turf grass would.
This project only requires an electrical permit. However, an electrical permit is required prior to start of work. You can always check with the Douglas County Building Division for permitting requirements at 303-660-7497. Our water feature includes a pump powered by underground electric lines. Anytime you install electric appliances, they must be approved by a county inspector. And anytime those appliances involve underground wiring, the lines and their burial trenches must be inspected before they are covered over in dirt. And so, midway through our water feature installation, we are required to get an electrical trench inspection.
We're here to look at a trench for a water feature, looks like. So we're going to have a pumps installed in this box right here, and today we're just looking at the underground wiring. So what I'm going to look at first of all is the type of wiring used. And this is a number 12 direct buried cable. So it's fine in this application. And since this is a residential circuit of 20 amps or less, and it will be GFCI protected at the end, we're only looking for a burial depth of 12 inches. Now you see we have some conduit coming out of the ground here to protect it where it emerges. That's fine. That's exactly what we need to do. The rest of the cable can just be buried directly in the dirt. So I'm going to check our trench depth here at a few places. Alright, well I see we're buried at 12 inches here, so that brings up a couple of requirements. First of all, it's a residential branch circuit. It's less than 20 amps, and it's going to have to be GFCI protected. The way we'll achieve that is with a GFCI breaker in the panel so that the entire length of the wire is protected. If we were just to mount an outlet here with a GFCI device, it would only protect this device and not the buried cable itself. Now I see we have some large rock in the soil here, so we want to make sure that we have a good clean fill over the wire to at least 4 inches depth, so that when we compact it down, the rocks don't damage the cable. Okay, we walked the whole trench and checked our depth in our cable. This trench is approved at this point. And our next inspection then will be final electric for an installation like this.
Once the inspection was complete and our trench passed, we could bury our electric lines and finish our water feature. Next, we'll put in our sprinkler. An irrigation system is something many homeowners might be able to install themselves. For those who prefer that option, classes are available at Home Depot or most other building supply stores. The underground irrigation system on our project is a pretty complicated job, so we're having ours installed by professional landscapers.
We came in and decided to do an underground irrigation system. It's subterranean. You have pipes under the ground that emit water, and they're about 4 inches below the sod level, which helps to create a very healthy root system that will penetrate down into the ground and also can conserve as much as 45–60% of the normal water consumption.
Visually, it's not a very obvious way of irrigating as opposed to the old spray heads, which you see the head and they pop up, and so it's much more efficient from a watering standpoint.
The technique is basically to install the valves like you would on a regular above ground irrigation system. The best way to approach with the soil is to rototill. Rototill with your soil amendments in the ground to a depth of 6 inches, and you would need to create furrows, like if you were gardening, about 4.5 inches deep. And these furrows are going to be 9 inches apart or 12 inches apart. Really has to do with either the ground being level or sloped. After this, basically, the grade is reinstalled back over the pipe. And at the end, there's going to be a blowout valve, a valve that would have to be drained every now and then. And also, it being a subterranean irrigation system can be difficult to monitor. One of the fears is, how do I know it's working? How do I know if it's not leaking? If the sprinkler system should fall under 45 pounds of pressure, a flag would rise and let this homeowner know that there may be a leak.
Now that our sprinkler system has been installed, we're going to need something to sprinkle. That means plants, trees, grass, and the decorative mulch beds that go with them.
Items that are probably a little more difficult for a homeowner who has never done them before might be the installation of a sprinkler system. But things like laying your own sod, planting trees, planting shrubs, planting flowers, a lot of those things are items that really, if you have the time and the energy to do it, can be done on their own. What plants would be best in which areas, which plants will survive on the north side of the house, which plants rely more heavily on water, which plants do better in lower water conditions. Depending on whether you're going to be putting shrubbery in that mulch bed or ground covers, there's two different processes. If you aren't interested in having things spread and grow around in that mulch bed area, you'll put a weed barrier down. If you are interested in having ground cover spread, or you know you're going to be putting in a lot of flowers and that type of thing, it doesn't make sense to put weed barrier down.
It's always a great idea to incorporate several types of ground cover as far as wood mulches, rock mulches, into your landscape. The more you can bring around a year-round appeal through textures, colors, and shapes, the more aesthetic your landscape's going to be in the long run. In the backyard, along the fence, we've chosen a rock border that is separating the lawn from the fence itself. Rock is fantastic for something like this. If you have wood mulch in a flat area or in a drainage area, wood mulch holds back water. It's one of the reasons you put wood mulch at the base of a plant. So in these instances, up against the house, also on this landscape, we've chosen rock mulch versus wood mulch.
When we install a tree or shrub or a flower, ideally you'd like to have that area that you excavate for the planting of that plant to be about 2.5 times the size of the ball. Typically what we'll do is we'll take a plant backfill mix that in with the existing soil, and then backfill that around the plant.
Putting in plants and mulch beds is the type of work many homeowners, especially those with green thumbs, might enjoy doing themselves. For those with the inclination, but without the experience, your local nursery should be able to help you determine which plants would work best for you. This will depend on the conditions, such as the amount of light or water offered by the various areas of your yard. We relied on the judgment of our experienced landscapers. Now that our landscape is shaping up with plenty of decorative plants and trees, they're going to need water to stay beautiful. We chose a drip irrigation system to keep all our plants watered automatically and at maximum efficiency.
The drip irrigation system is designed to where the drip emitter will release water directly around the plant itself, and you don't really have a lot of loss from evaporation.
Basically, there is a line, a sprinkler pipe covered by either a weed barrier and then rock mulch or wood mulch. At the base of these plants, a homeowner would put in a emitter. It's a device that's going to let out water at a set rate. For smaller plants, one would use a half-gallon emitter that's going to let out a smaller amount of water in the same time run as a larger emitter. This is a very economical use of water.
Now the actual landscaping phase of our project is almost done. At least there will be no more need to move heavy equipment or bulk supplies in and out of here. So this is a good time to put up our fence.
Basic installation of a fence is usually about a 2-day project. First day usually consists of digging your holes and setting your posts. And it's very important to maintain the existing grade that the builder has created around your home. We took the dirt from here and we took it to the dump. Second process, we come back and we set our rails. The particular fence that we built here today was a 5-foot fence. The holes need to be dug approximately 18 to 24 inches deep. You need to be spaced 8 foot or less. The reason behind this is that all of the materials that are sold for fencing come in 8-foot lengths. So you want to make sure that your posts are spaced slightly under 8 feet apart. That way you can trim the excess. Once you've dug your holes, you can place your 4x4 posts in the hole. We choose to use a quick set concrete. If your posts are perfectly plumb and level, it allows you to have a great guide for plumbing up your pickets on the rest of the fence, because you can align the pickets with the posts. Then we place the 2x6 plate on top of the fence. The final step to the process is applying the 1x4 fascia on this particular type of fencing that we're doing today.
Remember, many neighborhoods in Douglas County have covenant rules concerning the type of fence you can put up and what color you are allowed to paint or stain it. So make sure you check with your own neighborhood association to find out if such rules apply to you. In this case, there were covenant rules concerning our fence, which we had professionally built. Now that our fence is up and our yard enclosed, you might think our project is all done here, but there are still a few loose ends to tie up. For one thing, underground cables have been installed to the electrical appliances in our water feature, but the power still needs to be hooked up properly. For this, we will need the help of a professional electrician.
Basically what we've done is the 12-2 UF, we went ahead and sleeved it in a piece of 3/4 inch PVC. We took our ground from our 12-2 UF, put it on the ground bus side, and the neutral side, since we're using a GFI breaker here at the actual panel, the neutral hits the breaker first, and out of the breaker, there's another neutral that hits to our neutral bar, which is this. And then obviously the hot wire connects in here. So if there's any problem with our circuit heading to the pond, it's designed to trip this so nobody gets hurt. Put the panel cover back on. I'm going to turn the house back on. I'm going to go ahead and leave this off because we haven't hooked up the other end yet, so I don't want anybody getting hurt. And all I'm going to do now is label the bottom circuit. There we go.
Next step for our installation, we're going to get our weatherproof box ready to be installed so our pump can be plugged in. Get some glue on here so no moisture. It's nice and tight. First thing we want to do is get our box ready to go, all weatherproof. Has these screw-in knockouts, so no water can leak into the box. And put those wherever you're not going to run your wire in. Get good and tight. Our next step would be to put a screw in a connector. That'll slip right over our piece of pipe. Now we're ready to put on our receptacle. We'll strip out our wire. Every metal box, we need to make sure we ground. This usually comes with a ground screw inside. Our next step will be cutting our wires to length. About 8 inches out of the box. We'll strip out our ends at 3/4 of an inch. Now we're ready to put on our receptacle, which can be just a regular receptacle. Our black wire will go on the brass side. That's our hot wire coming in with our power. We have our white, which is our neutral wire. Hooks up to the silver side, same size as ground. Ground goes to green. Now that's completed. We can screw that in, put our cover on. Tuck all our wires in the back of the box. Now with most ponds, you're going to have a plug plugged in most of the time. So you're going to want to use one of these in-use covers so you can keep it closed. These little covers just snap in. Just like that. Now it's ready to be turned on. Make sure it works. Now that the other side is all complete and ready to be turned on, back to your circuit breaker, turn on, make sure it works. You can always push your test button, make sure it trips, and then we go to the other end, put in our plug tester, make sure we're good to go. Yep.
Once all our appliances are hooked up and our proper circuit breakers are in place, we're ready for our final electrical inspection.
Okay, we've got this nice water feature, which looks like we'll have a pump right in here. And we're going to take a look at our connections to the pump, the cord we're using. And that looks all right in there. And we'll just follow the pump cord over here to the GFCI receptacle, which we can test that the GFCI works properly. That all looks good. Now we'll move up, take a look at some of the lighting. So what I'm going to need to see from you is the paperwork that came with the fixture so we can verify that it's an approved type for use in water. Then we're going to go check the transformer too while we're here. Now we're going to take a look at your transformer here for the light. Oh, this one's actually a time clock. Has our UL listing. It's plugged into a GFCI receptacle here. And what we want to do, because this is a time clock that's designed to be plugged in and left plugged in, is we want to switch this to an in-use cover like we have at the pump. So if that's our only item, it's fairly minor and we'll give you what's called a correct and proceed. I won't need to come back and see that it's been put on. Okay, now we're going to take a look at your electric panel. Alright, right here we have our GFCI protection for the pond, which we already tested, but I'm going to test it here again just to make sure. And our new circuits have been labeled. That's fine. That's all we need to check right there.
Now that we know our work is in compliance with Douglas County Code, there's only one thing left to do. Remember that putting green we started at the beginning of our project? Well, now the cement is properly set up and it's time to put the finishing touches on.
The actual surface is a textured nylon surface. You're going to get a much more true ball rolling with a textured nylon surface. This surface is actually called tweed. And the reason we call it tweed is because it's got a built-in dead look. Once we glue the putting turf to the concrete, virtually no maintenance, other than keeping the actual surface clean.
The biggest thing that we do is we add fun to the backyard. We put backyard basketball courts, miniature tennis courts, multi-purpose courts, and putting greens in backyards. And what it does is it provides a safe place for families to play. Their kids don't wander off somewhere else to play. They all want to play in the backyard. They're not watching video games, but we can customize them anywhere from a small half court all the way up to a full-size tennis court, tiny putting green, all the way up to a putting green beyond your imagination. Another good thing of having our putting green in your backyard is it's no maintenance, no watering, no mowing. And it's beautiful. I mean, just look at it. People come over and they go, wow, what is that?
Putting greens, artificial turf, and sports courts are becoming more popular all the time. They save on water usage, provide hours of fun, and simply look good. However, make sure you check with your homeowners association to find out what might be acceptable in your neighborhood. As you can see by these display courts, you can go incredibly big when it comes to recreational additions to your yard. For our purposes though, a simple 3-hole putting green will do the trick. Well, that's the end of our show and the end of our landscaping project. For more information on adding a deck to your backyard, check out Building to Code, Adding a Deck, also available from Douglas County Television. Remember, Douglas County regulations may be subject to change without notice, and any home improvement without the proper permit is illegal. If you have any questions about the grade requirements of landscaping in Douglas County, please call the desk or Drainage, Erosion, and Sediment Control Program at 303-660-7497, extension 2283. And for general information, call the Douglas County Building Division at 303-660-7497. We'll be showing those numbers again at the end of our credits, but for now, just take a look at how our project turned out.